Before we say any more about them, we should take a moment to pause and think, do we really need these signed number things at all? What are we going to use them for? And the simplest way that we use signed numbers is just the way that we did on the number line, to indicate direction. Usually the directions indicated by signed numbers are up is positive and down is negative. For example, we might say that 256 feet above sea level is positive 256 feet, and 37 feet below sea level is negative 37 feet. We might say that right is positive, left is negative, like we did on our number line. And sometimes we say forward is positive and backward is negative. And we can use that in space or in time. So I could, for example, say, if the rocket is going to launch at what we'll call time 0, the countdown starts at time -10, whenever a rocket is launching you here. We are now at T minus 10, 9. This is what that's referring to. We call the rocket's launch time 0, and so the time before that we're counting through negative numbers. So that's the simple thing that we can do with negative numbers. One direction is positive, the other direction is negative. These are the typical directions to be positive, but sometimes it makes the arithmetic easier to pick the other way around or some other directions. If it's not obvious from the context how we're using signs, or if we're using them in a strange way, like making the positive direction be downward, then we should say how we're using signs before we start describing things. Okay, so that's one way that we can use signed numbers. Another way we can use signed numbers is to extend a scale. One major place where this happens is in temperature. Right, so 0 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Lord Fahrenheit went outside today and said, gosh, this must be the coldest day ever. We're going to call that 0 degrees. And in fact, 0 degrees Fahrenheit is quite a cold day. But what do we call the temperature on a day 3 degrees colder than that? Well, we call it -3 degrees Fahrenheit. Here, we're introducing these negative temperatures in order to measure something that's colder than what we said was 0. And the third way that we use negative numbers is to represent actually less than nothing. What do we mean by that? So, for example, maybe we know that Frank has $0. He's broke. He has no money at all. But Susan also has $0, and at the same time, she owes $75. Clearly, Susan has less money than Frank does, even though Frank doesn't have any money. We can think of Susan as having -$75. Right? She has less money than someone who's only $40 in debt. She has less money than Frank, who has no dollars. And the last way we're going to mention to use negative numbers is to represent the direction of change. We can think of an increase as a positive change and a decrease as a negative change. Once we start getting into the arithmetic of signed numbers, this notion is going to turn out to be very useful. This is going to allow us to simplify the way we describe the arithmetic around change in nice ways.